Welcome. This is Wednesday, May 13th, 2020. This is a CG Talk with longtime member and leader at Microsoft, Ron Pessner, whom I will introduce in a moment. The purpose of today's call is to explore what Ron and his product team have learned about building better collaboration products at Microsoft, and in particular, how to shape and build a culture that supports building better products. And by the way, secondly, given we're in the coronavirus era, we want to hear from Ron on how he's running his large product team remotely. Culture is king, as the ancient Greek poet Pindar used to say, or as we moderns like to say, culture eats strategy for breakfast. In my 3 decades of CX and product work, especially back in the early days of the web, I emphasized the cultural and organizational issues that always lurked behind the software interface. Ron, too, has emphasized this for a long time, and I'm glad he's here to share with us what they've done to rebuild Microsoft Office, now called Microsoft 365, as well as what he's learned, as I mentioned, about leading a large product team that's now 100% remote. Ron he's in charge of collaboration across the MS 365 collaboration suite. So think of it as like all the features and products that span across, Word, Excel, PowerPoint, etc. He's been spent maybe 16 years now, Ron, I think at Microsoft, approaching 17. Mm-hmm. And you've held a number of roles there, including GM for games, for Windows, a senior role at Xbox, multiple roles in the Office organization. You've also had the privilege, and you did a webinar for us a couple of years ago about this, you've had the privilege and the pressure of presenting new software directly to Bill Gates, whose software reviews are legendary. And for all of you who are on the call today, Charlie will include a link to that earlier webinar if you missed it. In my humble opinion, the improvements to Microsoft software in the last 5 years, especially the front-end user experience, which really kind of sucked in the early days. I hope you don't mind me saying that, Ron.
Not at all.
Can in part be credited to Ron. He's led a cultural shift in the company that the new CEO has embraced and amplified. Prior to his long stint at Microsoft, Ron worked with a number of startups in the early days of the web. On a personal note, I've known Ron for more than 20 years. He's one of the most decent and values-driven leaders that I've had a chance to meet. And I'm grateful, Ron, that you're not just a member of the councils, but you're also a close friend. I count myself lucky. And I'll just share with you, outside of work, Ron and his wife work closely with a school in Ghana, West Africa. And he sponsors kids to go there. And he himself, and with his wife and family, they go to Ghana every 18 months and has been very active also in the Ghanaian community in Seattle, Washington. Ron, you're going to spend about 20 minutes talking through how you've changed collaboration across products and also what's going on now with running this team remotely during COVID. And then we'll do a Q&A. And for the folks on the phone, as Ron's talking, feel free to just put your questions directly into chat. In fact, and just make sure when you do a chat, it goes to everyone, panelists and attendees, so we can all see the questions. I tend to like that better than their Q&A interface on Zoom. So, Ron, a lot of members are struggling with how to run their product teams remotely. Tell us what you've done to both improve collaboration and the culture at MS and what you're doing to run your 90+ team there at MS right now. Thank you for being here, my friend.
Great, thank you so much, Phil. And it's very mutual. I really appreciate and value the councils and the work you do. It's truly remarkable. I really appreciate the opportunity to be here with you this morning and wanted to share with you a little bit about what we've been doing to turn Office into a tool for collaborative work. And I'm going to attempt to share my screen and see if I can pull this off. Great. So hopefully folks should be able to see soon.
Yeah. So
You can
did you want to
see
share
me.
your browser? Okay, perfect. There we are. I'm
Does
sorry.
that work?
Yeah.
Okay,
Yeah,
awesome.
perfect. Yeah, we can see that.
All right, great. Um, so we've been on a journey to turn Office into a tool for collaborative work for the last couple of years. And what I wanted to share with you, I've been in the Office org for about 3.5 years. And right before I came, there was an attempt to make Office a tool for collaboration and compete with Google Docs that did not go super well. In fact, I included the Wall Street Journal article that was written the fall prior to me joining, and it was pretty rough. In fact, there was a complete, about 6 weeks before I joined Office, there was a complete teardown of this article and presentation to Satya and the SLT on how we
By the
messed
way,
up.
Ron, Satya, you mentioned, most people know that name, but say
Oh yeah,
that.
so Satya is our CEO, and the SLT is our senior leadership team. So all of Satya's direct reports. So the most senior management layer at the company was, Office was, I would say, in the penalty box for having not gotten this right. And the user experience was awful. In fact, this review was spot on, but really,
Yes.
really rough. So obviously a lot has changed in the world. And I mean, ultimately what had happened to Office is Office was kind of born early on as a great tool for authoring, but there's other need of being able to get work done with other people was happening. And so the product market fit for Office was actually deteriorating over time. And this was happening even before COVID-19. And I will tell you, like, we've done a lot of reflecting in the last couple of months, particularly since everyone has shifted to work from home largely. And it's been quite remarkable how we've just been incredibly fortunate to have completed the bulk of this work. We're not done. We have a lot more to do, but we have the basics working as of about October, November of last year. And so the timing of this crisis for us has resulted in really a dramatic acceleration in usage and retention of Office for collaboration. And we've been reflecting on, well, what would have happened if this happened, even 6 months ago, or a year ago, or much less 2 years ago, and what that would have meant for the Office franchise and the negative impact that would have had at Microsoft. And so that's been quite humbling for us. The market demand has really shifted, and this only is accelerating with work from home. But if you think about the document as a thing you would author, but most of the collaboration was historically outside of the document. And then the next evolution was turning the document into a shared workspace, and Google really led the charge on this. And now we're seeing more and more. In fact, Phil, you highlighted this a little while ago with tools like Mural or Coda or Notion or Monday. People are spending more time in collaborative space that allows them to work and think and talk together and co-create that may or may not result in the creation of a traditional document. And so when we think about this progression, we've done a lot of work on the middle one, and we announced this thing called the Fluid Framework about a year ago. That's really aimed at the far right around enabling collaborative activities no matter where you are.
Yeah.
Phil talked about this at the beginning about how our products really reflect our culture, and we've spent a lot of time talking about this internally. A couple ways that we did this is we used LinkedIn. LinkedIn had never used Office, and they were an acquisition of Microsoft, so we picked this group inside of the company because they were habituated on Google's tools and on Slack. And so we went to them and said, hey, we really want to learn about how you're using the products and then where the deficiencies are in Office and what would it take to make your users really happy. And so we were able to use them almost like a learning lab for us. Secondly, on structuring the collaboration program and the work that we're doing, this is kind of like giving Office a major remodel. Like we're going in and saying, hey, we want to layer in this new capability. And if you run Word, Excel, or PowerPoint, that change represents potential disruption, and that change in user model is something that is, makes you worried that we might mess up in some way. And so what we did is we said, look, we're trying to turn Office into a tool for collaborative work. How do we engage the program and engage the team working transparently, working in the open, working collaboratively, and really using the tools as a way to reinforce the culture. So an example of this would be we did end-to-end session tests where we would get all the product leaders together and sit and do these user journeys through the product. Say, hey, I want to like work with Phil and a couple other folks and build this document, and then do the entire workflow end to end. So like logging in to starting the document to sharing it to collaborating and finishing. And there's nothing better than getting a group of product leaders together, the people that actually own the code, and having them live that
Feel
simulated, feel the pain of what that experience is for users. And then lastly is really working on making our culture more collaborative. So a way that we did this is you can imagine when you're doing collaboration, we've got the cloud storage, we've got teams like mine that are shared that build experiences that go everywhere, and then you've got app teams. And it's so easy for people inside of that complicated flow to define success in a narrow way that is in around the code that they own, as opposed to looking end to end at the customer problem. And so we created a series of composite measures that would measure the quality of the user experience end to end. And we got everyone to focus on making that their commitment as opposed to their local measures. And this has been an incredibly effective tool because it really changed the conversation about like, oh, that API doesn't work the way I expected it to, it's their fault, to, wow, I can't deliver on this end-to-end scenario because we're not meeting the quality measures that we need to hit. And so what do we need to do together to go solve this?
And can you give us an example of one of those things that, you know, really helped focus people on the right outcome and change that culture?
Yeah, so we created this system where, you know, like a lot of engineers like to point out what's wrong or what doesn't work or what's broken.
Yeah.
And so we basically said, okay, what do you think what are the measures of a good collaboration session? Like, what do you think needs to be there in order to make sure that that session is good? Yeah. And then we use that to then force ourselves to build telemetry points and then evaluate our success relative to those criteria. And so we actually celebrated flunking ourselves by coming up with increasingly more stringent measures of quality. It was, and frankly, celebrating internally. So when, you know, we started out with 4 or 6 vetoes, and now we have over 70 vetoes. And they're everything from like, hey, presence didn't show up fast enough in this session. Well, why is that the case? To one that's really around customer driven of like, wow, we noticed that this large enterprise customer isn't really doing much real-time collaboration. What's going on with their network? Are they able to connect to the Office collaboration service? And come to find out, we found out that many of our customers had their networks configured incorrectly, and we were able to help them with that so that they could be able to solve these problems. So it really is a wide range, but it's everything from performance and reliability through to scenario completion.
And you said there's 70 so-called vetoes, is that?
Yes, 76 vetoes now.
And what's a veto?
So a veto is every single time the session does not deliver against what we've defined as a good quality session, it generates a veto that then generates bugs that then we go investigate and figure out what's going wrong.
Okay. And then one more question on the LinkedIn, did the LinkedIn employees have to start using Microsoft, or were they given the choice?
Great question. So, so you can imagine there's when a company is acquired, and they're still using competitive products, there's a lot of internal pressure. The LinkedIn folks were allowed to run separately, so they were not required to adopt Office. And so we gave them a choice. And we said, look, we don't want to force Office onto LinkedIn users. We want them to see the benefits of using Office and then give us feedback on the product and see us make changes and then adopt slowly over time. And that's what's happening actually inside of LinkedIn. We've seen an acceleration of work getting started in Office. And we're seeing a pretty dramatic increase in use in Office over the last 6 months. And we've been on this journey for about 2 years.
So soft power, cultural change, and a real improvement in the product is leading that change. Correct. It's not mandated. That's great.
No.
And when you approached them and wanted to use them as a lab to learn from, as they were using Slack and Google Docs, was that, they're in a totally different group. They're separated from you guys. Did you come up with that idea yourself, and were you well received, or did you have to build some bridges that made that possible?
Yeah, so we were reasonably well received initially, but there was a lot of skepticism. And yes, we came up with this idea ourselves. And I've been on point with LinkedIn and responsible for that engagement and just making sure it goes well. The thing that's been challenging is, like every group at Microsoft, you can imagine we're this like multi-headed hydra, and the poor folks at LinkedIn, everyone wants, when they get engaged, they want to go down and study LinkedIn, and they're like, look, we feel studied to death. Can you just do something, So like, we might be engaging on something, but yet I need the SharePoint team to do something to help us with the scenario. And so then the SharePoint team, it's almost like they're starting over again, and they want to be able to get down and review everything themselves. That part was a little challenging originally, but overall, like actually the folks at LinkedIn now hold up this engagement. Like they were a little skeptical. They didn't understand the why behind why we were so interested. And it took some convincing to help them understand. It's like, look, if we can convert your users, our thesis was, if we can convert your users and make them really happy with Office, then every single one of our customers where dual use is happening, where they're using Office and a competitive product, that will, if we can clear the bar at LinkedIn, then we can clear the bar for other companies like LinkedIn. And we've got a number of them in our, customer base.
Yeah, if you guys do it, then we should be able, that whatever it takes to convince you should convince everyone else, or most of everyone else.
Correct.
Yeah, and I'm guessing it took a lot of, this is the, the problem with the role of product manager is it's not enough to know how to build a great product or to have good product vision or even to understand how to get customer input. You also have to have great, what I call community organizing skills. You have to know how to build relationships and alliances and do all kinds of things that most people are not that good at, in my experience. And certainly at Microsoft, which has had a pretty tough internal culture. Satya is changing that now and wants to change it, but it's been pretty rough and tumble. And you have a different approach, Ron. And that's what it's kind of hard to talk about because it's invisible. It's like, we can see the results, and you're going to tell us that in a moment, but your approach to building relationships and your intelligence, your smarts, your EQ, and your capacity to win over the folks at LinkedIn, is one of your great strengths, and something I certainly want to be highlighting in this conversation.
So we now feel like we're actually all on the same team. Like, it's actually fascinating. The conversations have completely changed, which has been fun. Great. So in terms of results, we've seen really dramatic growth in terms of tenant adoption and use of the cloud with Office. But we're still at the beginning of this journey, but we're very encouraged. We've now demonstrated to the product teams inside of Office that as we improve the product and we address core customer needs, we're starting to see really good organic adoption. And you can imagine with the COVID situation, like this growth and adoption started accelerating in October, November of last year. December, a little bit of a dip because of school holidays and end of year vacations. And then in January, picked back up again. And then February, March, and April has just accelerated.
So I have a question for you, Ron. And I know, and it's great to see those results. One of the problems that Microsoft has historically had is it had a sales-driven product culture. In other words, if a big customer wanted X, then it was put into Microsoft Word or Excel or whatever, and you ended up with these bloated products, right? You come along and you have a different approach. How did you change that? How did you get away from the bloat approach and the sales-driven approach and something that's a little more streamlined? Can you talk about that?
Yeah, so that's a good question because it's still a challenge for us, particularly in areas like security and compliance that have historically been, I would say, checkbox feature led as opposed to user experience led.
Yeah.
The thing that's really helped us a lot with this is it's one thing I think we really learned under Satya, and Satya, we're fortunate to have top-down support for this, but it's one thing to feel like you have to use Office. Then there's another thing, because it was given to you by your IT department. It's another thing to feel like you want to use Office because it's, helps you get your job done. And then it's another thing to love to use Office and like really embrace and want to love the product. And so we have been focused on trying to identify those capabilities that people love and really elevate them in the product experience, and frankly remove or minimize the exposure to the other things that are less prominent. So a great example of this.
The bloatware. I'm sorry.
Yeah. No, it's crazy. Well, actually, I gave a talk to all of our product leaders, gosh, it was a year and a half ago. We do an internal product conference about, the change that we're trying to drive. And, one of the areas that I've been championing is user experience coherence, so that you have a very clear way that you do core tasks in the suite. So things like authentication, search, your meet control, like all these things and sharing shouldn't all be arbitrarily different, when you're using the products. You want to feel smart when you move from Excel to Word to PowerPoint. Right. And the image I used to describe our products before was, if you've been to Seattle and been to the Pike Place Market, there's this gum wall where literally people have taken pieces of gum and stuck them on this wall. And the Office product suite, you could view a little bit like the gum wall. And so I had our design team put these little icons up and teaching UI so that you could explain different pieces of the wall. And it really is a disaster from a customer's perspective. And the other area, maybe to kind of segue into...
I'm just going to do something real quick. I'm going to share my screen. Can you see this?
Yes, that's
the gum wall.
That is the gum wall.
That's the gum wall Ron's talking about. Yeah, that's a pretty good description of what Office used to feel like.
Not so great. And then the other thing
you have to share again now. You have to share.
No problem. So the other thing that we've been doing is we've been trying to improve our product storytelling and really focus on how do we tell the story of Office. And I don't know if this will play inside of Zoom or not, but here's an example of a really short video that we've to help explain the collaboration capabilities in Word, Excel, and PowerPoint that we just released.
Yeah. Let's see. It should work, I think.
Here we go.
Yeah, we're not hearing the sound.
You not hear the sound?
No. This is on YouTube, right?
Yes, it is.
Are you playing it on YouTube right now?
No, it's embedded.
Okay.
I can hear the sound.
You might try going out to YouTube, ironically.
That's fine. It's okay. But this gives you some sense of, folks can take a look at it afterwards too. It's but you can see it's here on YouTube. But that's an example of how we're using.
Oh, Suraj, that was helpful. We had to unshare and then reshare with audio, share audio. this is one of the changes that's happened in Zoom, so that's fine.
All right. Let's see if I
If
can
you share
get this.
again, hopefully you see the option that says share audio
Hold on.
as well as the screen. Well, while Ron's doing that, put some more comments and in the chat, and any questions you'd like us to ask Ron when we're done here. All right, let's see if this works.
Hold on, and then share with audio. Stop sharing. Let's see here.
Like you said, we can have people.
Oh, here we go. I got it.
Okay.
All right, so let's give this a try. Does that work?
Yeah, that'd work, yeah. Little slick video.
Yeah, fun thing that our design team, helped us put together. Let's see.
Maybe you could speak. Do you feel like can you speak now to how you're running your team remotely?
For sure. So I'll cover that really quick. Let me just project again. All right. So hopefully, can everyone see the screen?
Yeah.
So I just wanted to close this section by saying, we're now starting to see both user feedback and reviews, but the user feedback is obviously way more important than the reviews. But Mary in particular is a pretty harsh critic of Microsoft. And we're now starting to see a lot of this, because of the history and the way this was born, we felt like we couldn't go be large and in charge about, oh, look, come check out the collaboration capabilities in Office. We've been much more humble in our approach. And we've been trying to seek out feedback from folks where they say, wow, actually Office has really changed. And you should really think about how you use it, because you can get a lot more out of the product if you use it in a modern collaborative way. So in terms of managing the team and sort of what's been happening over the course of the last couple of months as we've shifted to work from home, we have really focused on one is helping people feel, we're finding that people are in a wide range of situations, personal situations. It's everything from, wow, I'm so happy that I don't have to commute anymore. And, I'm an empty nester and this is amazing. To, I'm completely terrified because I have a pre-existing health condition and the situation is scary to me. To, I've got two small kids at home that are, that are 3 and 5, and I can't
bouncing off the walls. Yeah.
Yeah, bouncing off the walls. I can't think straight. And so one of the things that's been challenging for us is trying to engage and support our team that are in such a wide range of personal circumstances. Yeah. The things that that we've been really encouraging people to our people are our number one asset. It's really the talent and the people that we have. And so we've been encouraging people to take care of themselves, take care of their families, take care of their own personal situation, and get set up in a way that enables them to sustain working from home for an extended period of time.
Yeah.
Secondly, we've been focused on live site issues and getting people to just focus on, let's make sure our customers are supported, because every customer is going through the exact same transition that we're going through as a team.
Yeah.
And then lastly,
so does that mean have you put other kind of new product development on hold to focus?
That's the third thing I was going to say.
Okay.
Is this is not a time for us to be injecting change or a lot of disruptive change. But then the last part, which has been interesting, is we're really turning this into a learning lab to help us understand, okay, we've now got all these people that are using Office and Teams in ways that maybe they hadn't before. And so what do we do to learn from what their experience is? And where do we still potentially have gaps in our product that we need to close?
Yeah.
And some things that haven't worked super well is, I think initially we were all kind of like trying to take our physical schedule and put it online and say, okay, well, now we're just going to like pack the day with meetings. You know, I personally found for the first couple of weeks, like my body hurt, you know, like it was just super challenging to sitting is not a marathon sport. So it's not great. And the other part that's hard is that connection with people, not having that ability to connect and transact things. I've come to realize that like so much, I didn't realize how much of my job I transacted in 20 to 30 second hallway conversations that I just don't have anymore.
Yeah.
And that's been tricky. Some things that have worked for us really well is we put together 5 different care packages targeting different types of situations that people might be in. And our group admin sent out a poll and people could opt in and pick the care package that they wanted. And that was really effective. People were really quite blown away by that. And they're very thoughtful packages, like, you know, for people that had families, we put in, you know, family-friendly games, you know, if it was like a self-care package, you know, if you wanted something that was more like to pamper yourself, but not a big gesture, but something that was, you know, reasonable and, but it was thoughtful. Another thing that's worked well is just checking in with people on a regular basis and getting managers to check in and do that informal.
By voice or over collaboration?
Mostly by chat, like checking in with people on chat or having really quick video calls, you know, for like 5 minutes. Another thing that's working well is reducing the number of meetings, like dramatically reducing the number of meetings, and frankly, leveraging the asynchronous collaboration capabilities in Office to get things done. And so we've been, you know, trying to push more things into async channels. Yeah. And the other thing, which I'd say that's worked well too, is—
Do you have a day that is dedicated to no meetings?
Yes, we do. We've started that. So we do no meetings on Fridays.
You have no meeting Fridays? Awesome.
Yeah. No meeting Fridays, and then reducing meetings the rest of the week. And then the other thing that's been pretty effective is, you know, to combat this, what's happening is people are starting to spill over into work and personal life's blurring. You don't know what day of the week it is. You know,
Blur's
people
Day. It's Blur's Day.
Blur's Day. And so the thing that I started doing that was, and I had my leadership team do that was very effective, is we started to populate our out of office message with our work hours and declare them and say, these are my work hours today. And then being disciplined about not doing delay delivery on messages beyond that, and trying not to respond, or at least not send email into the team or chats into the team after those declared hours, and encouraging people, like people wanted flexibility. And so it gives them permission to declare when they're going to be available and doing their work that fits best with their schedule.
So they declare that on your chat, or how does that work?
They declare it in their out of office message.
So you just have them sending out, they're actually in the office, so to speak, but you have them sending out an office message every day or whatever this is. Today I'm working, you know, 10 to 6 or whatever.
Yep, okay. That's right.
That's interesting. I like that. One of our members here had a question. Besides family and self-care, what other kinds of packages? Oh, there's a weird, I don't know what that weird sound is. It's only you and me on here. What other kinds of packages did you offer? And she went on to say that we had an earlier collaborative named speaker who talked about sending toilet paper to staff in the early days. And we laughed, but it made them think. Like, so tell us what kind of.
Yeah, so there were 5. I can show you exactly what was in each one of them. Like I can provide that as a follow-up for this, but there were 5 different packages that we allowed people to pick from.
Yeah.
And the other thing, we're very fortunate to have be at a stage of the year where we have budget to, we were like, okay, well, we've got some extra budget that we use. We typically do a fix, hack, learn week once every 4 months where it's self-directed work and people can, pick any topic that they want to fix or hack on any problem they want to work on or learn anything. And as part of that, we typically bring in a lot of food and feed people in the office. And this time we said, look, we're just going to give everybody $100 to go and support whatever restaurant that they want to support, and have food brought to their home. And that also was incredibly popular. I mean, people were fortunate enough to have the budget to do it, but it was the kind of thing that people were like, wow, I'm actually really stressed about the viability of my local favorite restaurant. And this was a gesture that allowed me to engage them and support them at this time. And that was incredibly popular.
That's great. Of course, you have the unusual situation of your business performing very well right now, which
correct.
Hopefully, some people bought Microsoft stock before Satya came in because they would have a really great return on their investment right now. All right, other questions. Let's see. Here's another question. The evolution of Office has been great. Certainly, quote, like to use the new products, not quite love yet. How does the MSFT Teams interaction product offering affect the Office platform in terms of face-to-face human communications? That's what they're asking. Yeah.
Okay, sorry, I want to clarify the question. So how does Teams impact Office usage?
Yeah, I think they're asking, how does Teams affect the Office platform? I'm not sure exactly what they mean here in terms of face-to-face human communications. I guess they're wondering, is Teams embedded in Microsoft 365? And
yes. Okay.
are you able to do a video chat?
Great. Actually, so this is a great one. So we have integrated Office into Teams, and we're seeing really dramatic growth in Office usage through Teams. We've gotten a bunch of customer feedback about things that we need to improve in that experience. And so we're working, that's actually one of the things that's on our list. Yeah. The inverse is we're also integrating Teams chat throughout the suite. So you'll see it show up in a whole bunch of different places. And then lastly, as part of the COVID research that we've done, we found that people really want, you might know of a company called Loom. People really want the ability to video annotate Office documents. So like if you send someone a slide deck and you want to be able to give them feedback and basically put a video comment in. And so that's another area where, it allows for a slightly better human connection. And it's more engaging and interactive, and we've gotten some feedback that would be an interesting thing for us to consider exploring.
Yeah, cool.
I hope that answers.
All right, more questions, folks. So I see Andy, Abigail, Brent, Ken. I'm not sure if that's Ken Serdan or not, and others. Any specific questions about product or how Ron is leading the product team at Microsoft 365? Any other culture questions? Anything else? I'll wait a moment. And you can raise your hand if you'd like to do that. Suraj, Steve, Tommy, Sachel. Oh, there is something in Q&A. Okay. All right. So Ken, actually, can I ask you, can I bring you in live, Ken? I'm going to promote you to panelist here. Let's see if this works. There's Ken, unmute. Ken, can you talk?
I think so, yeah. Can you hear me?
Yeah, great.
Great. Thanks for the time, Ron. Kind of fascinating. obviously you have the privilege and burden of having a product that almost all of us use every day. As we all know, everybody's got an opinion around those things. So good job on a lot of the work you guys have been doing. I'm really happy with a lot of the 365 adoption that we've been doing. After so many years of waiting, it's actually, I think you got some decent momentum.
Thank you.
So one of the aspects of your product strategy that I was kind of curious about is that obviously different from previous generations, you guys have thought about integrations. The video showed that a little bit as well, but you've actually taken it even further in that you're playing more nicely with third-party integration as well, which is like a relatively new cultural event, right? So I was curious whether you could talk about that, maybe even in the context of kind of the way that you have 365, but you're like promoting cloud storage partnerships with Office, where you can like have a captive storage audience to somebody other than you. So I'm just kind of curious what your thoughts were and how that was informed in your strategy.
Yeah,
Hey, Ron.
Yeah.
Before you answer, do you mind stop sharing your screen so we can, we can have a bigger picture of you and
Sounds
potentially
great.
of Ken if he can share his video.
Perfect.
Yeah. All right. Go ahead.
Does that work?
Yeah, that's great. Perfect.
Okay.
And by the way, Ken's a chief product officer at Diligent, which is a very successful B2B SaaS company. They've built software for running boards of directors. Microsoft may even use it on their board. I don't know.
We're trying.
I was gonna say, I still think they use OneNote, and they use it for off-label purposes. Like they put everything in the OneNote.
Yeah, I'm not going to say anything about long sales cycles with large organizations, but
we understand that. So I would say we are definitely, Satya has definitely driven a tone around more openness. And the only thing from a product strategy perspective there for us is this really comes from our, we have this program called Customer Driven, and it is about, okay, how do we make sure that our products are actually delivering on the jobs that customers need? And there's a wide range of those jobs. There's no way we're going to do all of them, but we want to make sure that our stuff plays nicely and we're actually solving the customer need. There is an opportunity for us to, from a product strategy standpoint, provide better integration and really think through what does it look like, particularly when you think about device management with Intune, or you think about integration of applications into the overall product suite. These are areas where we're really looking hard at extensibility points across the system to try to make sure that when we go to a customer, we can tailor to their unique needs, which sometimes will include third parties, and that's needs to be part of our plan. So I don't know that I've got anything more specific than that, but generally, culturally, our tone is very much around orienting around the customer and then making sure that our product actually enables those scenarios they care about if they're coming from first or third party.
Great. Hey, listen, I'm going to bring in, stay where you are, Ken. I'm going to bring in a couple other panelists. Sachel Wasson, I think you've got a great question, and I want to promote you to panelist if you don't mind. So I've just done that. It should take a moment here, and then Sachel will be here. I've unmuted you, Sachel.
Hi.
Hey, good to see you.
Me? Good
Yeah.
to see you too. Thank you, Ron. So much. I work at Wells Fargo, large company, big Microsoft client. We actually are, we were great in this kind of COVID scenario. We've got 100% of our team working remotely, and obviously realize the importance of collaboration tools collectively, not just the design team or the product team, but now everybody from sales people to service people are hungry to have better solutions. And what we've realized is that due to security issues and other things, in our company, we use Skype, but without video. We use Zoom, but without chat. We use Outlook. We don't allow Slack. We had a Mural pilot that people are like really eager to have Mural, but now the question is, should we use Microsoft Teams? And everybody's completely confused as to how to, harvest and harmonize these solutions? So are you getting feedback from other clients saying, how do they figure out what's the most optimal collaboration strategy to manage both, you know, project initiative type work and also be able to connect with people remotely?
Yeah, so it's a great question. A couple things on this. We view compliance and security as really foundational to our offering. And we've gotten quite a lot of feedback, particularly in regulated industries, on how important that is. One of the things that we pay really close attention to is we need to enable security and compliance and productivity at the end user level. Like we can't give ourselves a pass on saying, oh, well, this needs to be configured as a more secure environment, so therefore people are just going to be less productive. Like that just can't work. You have to have both value props need to be able to stand side by side. And today, you know, with part of where we are, we're doing work to enable collaboration and our security value prop, so that you can collaborate on label protected documents that are deemed highly confidential in the enterprise, as an example of this. It can happen on the web today, but it doesn't, not every customer has the web deployed, but we're doing work to enable it in the clients. We're hearing pretty positive feedback from a wide range of teams and office customers that we're hitting that sweet spot of security and compliance with productivity, but it is something we pay super close attention to. And like we have holes in our value prop today, particularly on the client side, that we're aggressively working to close. And I think the current COVID situation is going to encourage us to go even faster.
I'm thinking, I don't know if you're open to this, Ron, but it might be helpful to Sachel if you did a side conversation.
Yeah, totally open to that. And I'm happy to put you in touch with the Teams people too. You know, like we do a whole, like, you know, deployment exercise. And I don't know who your account manager is, but I'm happy to help run that to ground too.
I also hear Sachel saying that there's kind of, there's an unmet need here for some advice and guidance in how to design the collaboration environment, which includes Microsoft tools, but also third-party tools, and how those all come together. Is that what I'm hearing, Sachel? Is that fair?
Well, yes. I mean, ideally, if we could go all Microsoft and it was secure, you know, less is more, right? You know, what I hear a lot is that, like, we don't have Slack in our environment because we're not allowed to. But in companies who have Slack, unless they're kind of almost 100% Slack, they get confused because now they're half in Outlook and half in Slack. They don't know where the message was that they last saw. So sometimes less is more. So we don't want to have Zoom and Skype necessarily. If one of them worked completely, we would probably migrate all there,
right,
and live in that environment.
We are hearing,
yeah, I'm sorry, go ahead.
We are hearing that feedback.
Yeah, and we did a great call, Sachel, that we're going to send you the link to with Envision, which was talking about how they've set up their remote employee, because they've been permanently remote with 1,200 people for like 10 years. And one of the things they talked about, and Jason Fried also talked about this, is that, like, you have to agree this is the primary channel, right? If you've got email, you've got Slack, you've got, I don't know, other things floating around, like what's the thing I must check that, you know, so that we can all come to agreement. There's some kind of important hygiene around, you know, how these, you know, what you decide as an organization. And I think that's, I don't know who should be helping companies with that, but it seems like that's it. You know, it's not the software issue; it's sort of the work environment and culture issue. And just as email, there's been tons of issues with over the years because people aren't thinking about how to use it. There's a few more people. There's a lot of questions here, and I know we're getting close to the end, so I'm not going to bring more people in just for time's sake. But let me read some of these questions. How are sales responding to this change? I think you showed us that, but maybe you can respond to that. Did you have to make changes in personnel over the last few years to bring about the culture change? Did you need to bring in new people with a more humble, frankly, approach to culture and to customers? And then how did you roll out the story on the changes? One of the challenges is trial versus awareness. Especially for those who've shifted to another platform, Google Docs, for example, or Slack.
Yeah.
So that'd be great to hear some of those thoughts.
Yeah.
And I just, oh, and someone's asking, can they send you some MS 365 feedback offline? For sure. Definitely.
Please,
Yeah.
yes, you can
Okay.
send me, feel free, Phil has my email, you can send me feedback offline, I'll get it routed into the right, I'll open a bug for you. On sales, yes, we have changed our sales cycle, and we're, one thing we've been doing is getting the product team to create more collateral, not relying on marketing to do that, but having the product team really engage deeply with design, the people that drive change management, and the marketing team to create collateral that the sales team uses.
Yeah.
On personnel, for sure, yes, we have had to make changes in personnel, particularly at leadership levels where you have people that were entrenched and doing the same job for quite some time, and either moving them to a different job or encouraging them to pursue something else because they weren't a fit with what we were trying to do. And then in terms of how to message the changes, we actually used LinkedIn as an opportunity to do that. So we've tested various things with LinkedIn to see what's worked to help drive adoption. Like a piece of feedback we got from a lot of customers was, I don't know where to start in Office. I don't know where to begin my workday. I don't know what to do. I don't know what I have. I don't know what it's capable of. And so we made a bunch of changes to office.com and then rolled out that education with the IT team to the LinkedIn employee base, and then got a bunch of feedback. And then based on how well that did, we then shared it out more broadly to the rest of our enterprise customers.
That's great. That's great. I mean, obviously we could spend so much more time. I want to shift gears here at the end because there are a couple of people who actually were interested in your work in Ghana, Ron. So maybe we'll end there. There's, I will just say in chat, somebody put in Miro, M-I-R-O, which is a competitor to Mural. And yes, they do sound alike. And Miro was a great painter. And I think that's where they got that name. Although I think they were looking for something that sounded like Mural. I don't know for sure. But how simple that tool is and frictionless, and how that's helped with culture change for one of these companies. That's helpful. All right, so Cami, are you still with us? Let me see here. Cami, I'm going to promote you to panelist, have you join us. And I know you were interested in talking to Ron here. Let's see, did that work? I think it's working now. About his work in Ghana. All right, well, I don't know if that's working. It may not be working. Let's see. Thank you for your feedback, by the way, for those of you who are putting in chat here. Excellent talk, great source of real product view and fact-based change. Yep, you're welcome. Thank you. Thanks for being here. So I don't know what Cami wanted to ask. Let's see if she has. Oh, she might have dropped off. That's interesting. Okay. Well, could you just in the last couple minutes say a little bit more? She wanted to hear more about your interest and efforts in supporting children's education in Ghana.
Yeah, sure. So, gosh, a lot to say here. We, our family, we have.
Cami, are you with us?
I'm here. Is it working?
Yes.
Working.
Oh, fantastic.
Say a little bit more about your question.
Okay, terrific. Thank you. Thank you so much for the session, by the way. A moment for your background, Phil, which I've been enjoying immensely as much as your expert moderation. You were asking questions as I was thinking of them. And Ron, thank you so much. This tool is communication, it's collaboration, but I also want to say it's education too. I'm using it for training, for motivation, for so many things. It's so timely. So this session is greatly appreciated. And I was interested in what led you to Ghana, the work that you do outside of what I can imagine is a 24/7 job. I just wonder what was the story behind, what are your efforts there? Anything that you'd like to share, I'd be very interested to hear.
Yeah, sure. So, so real quickly, growing up, we actually had a Ghanaian guy studying in my hometown of Richmond, Virginia, and he stayed with us. So I had some exposure as a kid growing up to Ghana. And then we have 4 kids. 3 of them are biological, and our 3rd kid is adopted or was adopted from Ghana. And so we have been very in touch with both him, his family, and the group that is in Dodoa outside of Accra that does a bunch of education work. So we go about every 18 months. And as part of that, the cool thing for us was, we have 2 girls and then 2 boys. The cool thing for us is, we ended up being adopted by the Ghanaian community here in Seattle. And so they have us over for every major, event. If there's a baptism or a funeral or an Independence Day celebration, or just coming over to watch the Super Bowl. It's been really remarkable how the Ghanaian community has opened up here and brought us into their lives. So we've spent a fair bit of time working with the school in Dodoa, helping them get stood up with, obviously Microsoft products, but then also sponsoring kids to go there. So it's been quite a transformational thing for our family.
Yeah.
How wonderful. I appreciate the personal story. Thank you so much. And that's very inspirational.
Cami, do you have a connection to Africa, or were you just interested in
I don't. I happen to personally believe that investing in education for children is one of the most important things we can do. I think that's risen to everybody's visibility now, all the stay-at-home moms, which I'm not.
Yes.
I don't know how people do it, but I just think it's a tremendously worthy cause that I'd like to be involved in. So thank you for the inspiration.
Yeah.
That's great. That's great. Yeah, that was terrific. Ron knows this. I spent some time in Nigeria in the 80s, which is near Ghana, but the population's about 10 times bigger.
Yes.
And it also has 10
Sure.
times more challenges with some corruption and other things. But the people are tremendous. Unbelievable.
Yeah, I think so.
I went all over the country. It was life-changing for me.
I can only imagine. And this Teams, I'm on a Teams call now at 1 o'clock that I'm going to have to jump off of to go and use your product.
Thank you.
So
Thank
many
you.
thanks
All right,
for this.
everyone.
Okay. Okay.
Yes.
Yeah, thank you.
Please send me any product feedback would be great. And Phil, I'll follow up on what the care packages are that we use, the details.
Great. And we'll send an email out to everybody, and we'll include Ron's email address in that if you want to have any follow-up dialogues with Ron. So Ron,
cool.
Thank you, my friend. It's wonderful
Thank you.
to meet you, and I appreciate
See you
your
later.
openness
Thank you
and
all.
your
Thanks for the opportunity.
Great. Okay.